there are a couple of trades that may make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think it's a good opportunity to talk about them. With Najee Harris's news coming on Friday that the team declined his fifth-year option, making 2024 the last year on his current deal, there's all this speculation about whether or not this is the end of Najee Harris or if Jaylen Warren's going to be the starter or what's going to happen in Pittsburgh over the next year, 12-month span. The speculation about him being traded has kind of ramped up since then, about the possibility that there are teams who need a running back. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are probably the biggest one that I have seen or heard about over the last 2 or 3 days. The possibility of him being traded seems to be getting higher and higher. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, are you considering a trade if someone calls? I'm not saying they're actively out there looking for a trade, but if teams are calling saying, hey, is Najee Harris available? Are you saying yes?
I mean, I think if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, if I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, I've already made a statement about positional value. I've already made a statement about what I think of Najee Harris's value.
Yeah.
By not picking up his fifth-year option. Again, we talked about it before, but it's a cheap deal for a guy who's been super productive. They obviously think that they can replace Najee Harris with Jaylen Warren, and that's fine. I think that's an opinion that makes sense.
Yep.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can understand where the logic comes from. If that's the way that you're thinking, then you have to pick up the phone when a trade call comes in. Like you don't do something like this, I think, unless you're willing to deal Najee Harris. And I'm not sure what kind of value they'd get back from him. I don't think you'd get anything more than maybe a third-round pick. Maybe you get 2 picks if you're lucky, but it's clear that they don't value Najee very highly, and I don't think any team would respond to them with a trade offer that's particularly high value by extension. You know, if this team doesn't really value this guy that they drafted in the first round not too long ago, who's done everything they asked of him, who's been successful and productive, why would any other team respond with, "Oh, we're going to unload this massive package for you"? That doesn't make any sense to me. But I think the Steelers have kind of tipped their hand a little bit. I think they kind of shown that they are open to a trade for him, that they are not including him in their future plans. I know there was talk of maybe extending him if he plays well this season, but I don't know if there's anything that Najee Harris could reasonably show you this season that would change their mind, and that would make them pay even more than what he would have gotten on his fifth-year option. So I think they've already moved on from Najee Harris in their future plans, but to that end, you'd rather trade him for something than let him walk for nothing.
Yep, exactly. I've seen hypotheticals where he gets dealt for a 4th-round pick, sometimes a 5th-round pick, and that seems like nothing. But at the same time, like if you're just going to let him walk in a year, if you think Jaylen Warren is the guy, because there are all these speculations. There's ESPN tossing out that they believe that Najee Harris's play is going to decline in 2024, and this is the end of Najee Harris. And if they really believe that, if the Steelers are sitting around thinking we're pretty positive Najee's going to eventually just fall off a cliff production-wise, then why not? What's a 4th-round pick for a guy that isn't going to add much value to your team by the end of the season, or a 5th-round pick for a guy who's not going to add much value by the end of the season? I think it makes a lot of sense. I think if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you're sitting here saying, we have a good running back in Jaylen Warren who could be a starter, I mean, what's stopping them from trying to find another guy? Or what's stopping them from just adding another guy? You know, Cordero Patterson is a good, versatile player. If you want to make him your number 2 running back, I mean, I think that works out just fine for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if you got to go find a number 3, like I don't think that you're taking a massive step backwards. I'm saying this. I think Najee Harris has still got a lot left in the tank. I still think that if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, it makes a lot of sense to pick up that 5th-year option. I don't know if I would have made the same choice that the Steelers did. And if I had to bet on whether or not Najee's going to make more than $6 million next year, I'd probably say yes. But if you're the Steelers and you think this is the end and this is coming to nothing, what's the difference between Najee Harris and Cordero Patterson? Like, I don't think there is much, you know, and if that's the case, trade him.
That's where I kind of disagree with you. I think there's a big step back from Cordell Patterson.
I'm not saying I think that. I'm just saying the Steelers think that. If the Steelers think Najee's going to fall off a cliff production-wise, what's the difference between that and Cordero Patterson?
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes much more sense, yeah. Yeah, like I said, they've tipped their hand. They've shown what they think of Najee Harris, and it's clear I don't think they have a very high opinion of him.
No.
I don't agree with that at all, but Yeah, I mean, if you don't think that Najee is going to be the same guy that he's been, then I guess this makes sense not to invest that money in him. I guess you pick up Cordell Patterson for a reason. I don't think they would have gone and gotten a veteran if they had planned on keeping Najee Harris around for a while. I think
Yes.
that's where you would have invested some draft capital or signed, a better undrafted free agent or something like that. They just clearly don't think that they can rely on him into the future. So I don't know. Just to me, it's kind of like get it over with now. Like he's not going to
Yes.
have trade value, I think, as much during the season as he is going to right now. I mean, I think you can sell a ton of teams on his potential. Like you said, the Cowboys really need a running back. I think you could. Just thinking about Najee Harris with the Cowboys, I think that's a very easy sell, and that's a very easy way to say, think about how productive Najee could be in that offense.
Yes.
But yeah, I think if you're going to do this, you got to do it, or you should do it sooner rather than later.
Yes.
I'm
I
not
agree.
saying I don't think you should drag it out into the season or even get it close to training camp, because then I think things just also get ugly, and also you lose a little bit of leverage if you show up to training camp and Najee is talking about how he's a little pissed off that they didn't pick up his option or voices any kind of displeasure. Then you kind of get into a stickier situation. Then he looks disgruntled and his trade value kind of drops.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people out there that believe that that's going to be the case. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'm not going to speculate on that. And just if you're looking to replace him, I think that that's the biggest step is, okay, Cordell Patterson, but that's only 2 running backs. What are you going to do from there? There's still a couple of names out here that like make a decent bit of sense for the Steelers if they're just like, hey, look, we need a number 2 that we're willing to take a shot on. I mean, Damian Harris is still out there, productive running back the last couple of years. Cam Akers, who's only 24 years old, productive when he's healthy. Yeah, right. There are names out here. Latavius Murray, if you're going to go old but reliable. Jerick McKinnon. I mean, Marlon Mack, if you're going to take a shot on somebody. Josh Kelly's still out there. I mean, worst case scenario, Kareem Hunt's still on the board. Like, you could find a name.
And if that's your worst case scenario, that's
it's not bad. Like, I think that the Steelers have options if they want to just say, hey, screw it, we'll just get a number 2. Like, these are guys that at some point in the season will play football and probably get snaps worth talking about for some team. And if the Steelers say, hey, look, we can get some value now, I mean, why not? Would I do it? No. But I would have picked up his 5th-year option, and I would have handled the whole situation differently. But where we are now, no. I think it's a possibility.
I agree with you, and I think it's pretty clear at this point we don't always see eye to eye with the Steelers. We don't always think the same way as Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin and the rest of the front office.
No. And I mean, to some degree, that makes sense. We would have traded a first-round pick for Justin Fields. They got him for 6th. Right. So it works out in their favor a lot of times, but sometimes it doesn't. And I think this time is a shot that I think I would have taken if I was Pittsburgh.